coming, the sun's zooming in, meltdown expected, the wheat is good there, engines stop running, but I have no fear, 'cause London is drowning. I live by the river.
Hello everyone and welcome to a By the Minute Arsenal podcast. I think what's going to be a very happy By the Minute Arsenal podcast. We are doing this the day after, still recovering from the FA Cup semi-final victory over Manchester City. That sounds good, doesn't it? Before we go any further, introductions. I am Matt H. With me is Pete. Hi, Pete.
Hello, Matt, and very happy Monday evening to you.
Thank you very much, Pete. And we also have Matt V. Hello, Matt.
Evening. I don't think I've been this happy on here since probably September.
I was going to say, we didn't even start with a win, did we? We started with a home defeat against Liverpool, so we couldn't even start on a bright spot. So it does seem like a long time, but there we go. Right, well let's get into it. Obviously, there's only one thing to discuss first, which is Pete. Did you enjoy lunch?
It was fantastic. It would have made my day even if we hadn't won.
Oh, well, that's very... That should go on a review site somewhere. I believe that's what the kids do these days.
But we're not allowed to tell anyone where it is because no one else seems to have found it yet, or not many people have found it yet.
Okay, it's not full of Villa fans like it was the time I went a couple of years ago. Yeah, that was disturbing, that was. We had to lie. We had to pretend we were there for someone's birthday. Because we were although at the end of the lunch, I think we did say actually, yeah, we are Arsenal fans. We're going to the game in a minute, because the whole place was completely full of Villa fans, apart from us. I think there was just three of us at one table. Nice. Yeah, there we go. And they weren't unpleasant, I have to say. They were boisterous, shall we say? But we'll leave it at that. Anyway. Let's get into it then. I mean, I've got some notes on the game, and we can go through some of the incidents. But perhaps first of all, for your sort of opening gambits, if you would just like to give an overall expression to your what I hope is pleasure. Matt, we'll start with you. So just to clarify, so everyone knows where we are. We beat Man City 2-1 after extra time in the Cup semi-final, making our way to our 20th FA Cup final, which I believe is a record. Arsene Wenger will be going for his 7th FA Cup win, which will definitely be a record. Matt, overall feelings, thoughts, views on the game?
Incredibly surprised in a very good way. I feared how our defence would cope, especially if we did play three at the back. But, I mean, on an individual level, those five across the defence were so good. Monreal obviously scored his goal, which he took so well. But both ends of the pitch, he was great. Rob Holding, I know we've mentioned how composed he's been on this podcast before, but again, on such a big stage, considering the amount of game time he's got and how young he is, it's so impressive. But a special mention, I never thought I'd see the day, Gabriel turned it on, really. I don't know if this is a system that suits him more, but he didn't seem as rash. Took Silva out of the game early on. But overall, I just think for us, we clearly in the first half, don't know if it was lacking in confidence, but I think it's understandable. We sat back, we let them have a lot of possession. But even when we were sitting back, there was just a much better shape to us than before. And I think that was really good to see. And I'm glad they got the reward for putting in the effort, which at times we haven't seen.
Yeah, all excellent points. I mean, I would just add from my point of view, I was fearing things for most of the first half, and then even for a little bit of the second, and particularly after City scored, I thought, well, that's it. And I'm not prone to pessimism, but I hadn't seen quite enough from us, although we had been improving, to get back into it. But of course, what I perhaps overlooked at the time, and it's with sort of hindsight, which is 2020, of course, makes it easier, is how generally solid we did look at the back. Now, having said all that, we must note, and I'm sure we'll get to them, about a couple of good saves, a bit of luck with the woodwork, and a bit of luck with the officiating. That did help us out a little more than it didn't, I think, although there was obviously errors both ways. But yeah, actually, you realise that it is the defence you want to talk about, isn't it? Because they seemed organised and they seemed to know what they were doing. And whilst there was, as there always is in any game, some moments of confusion, shall we say, they looked a lot steadier, I thought, than they had done in a lot of other games recently. Pete, you were there. What was your sort of overall view from?
Yeah, well, I spent quite a lot of the first half ticking off the minutes and thinking, yep, that's another 5 minutes we haven't conceded in. which made me quite happy. And the longer it went on, the more comfortable I got with that. I think you're right. There was a bit of good fortune involved in that, as well as good play. But it was they had a determination about them and a work ethic that maybe has been missing recently, and they seem to be enjoying this new formation and learning how to play well with it. And they say certain people in that new formation were outstanding. I agree with Matt that Gabriel had his best performance as in an Arsenal shirt, probably, certainly this season. Holding, it was just lovely to see him again. It's just really nice to see him, isn't it? He just looks like such a nice chap, and it seems for such a young man to be, doing a great job, stepping up at very difficult times. So long may that continue. I don't look forward to the day that we're saying, oh dear, that was awful. But he seems to be really growing into it. For me, man of the match was Nacho Monreal. He's just up and down that flank. He just never stops.
Well, that's interesting you say that, because not everyone, I'm being unfair. Looking at the team, there's a number of players who could even man of the match too. Oxlade-Chamberlain seemed to be a bit of the media darling yesterday, but I'm with you completely. I didn't know you thought this, but Monreal was my man of the match. Just for interest, Matt, if you had to pick one man of the match, who would yours have been?
I probably would have gone between Holden or Monreal. I mean, I saw a lot go for Oxlade-Chamberlain too, and I think he was excellent. Nothing wrong with him.
Oh, absolutely, he was. Yeah, I'm not criticising him, but yeah, I just thought Monreal just offered a little bit more.
Monreal, I agree, and probably one of those who, in this new system, may have been questioned from a tackling perspective. Yeah. A couple of suggested Gibbs may have been more suited, but he really stepped up and deserved man of the match probably.
Yep, I think that's. I think it's the nice thing is we've got so many people we can make an argument for. We can all do it, which is nice. So looking at some individual bits and pieces, then we talked already about the team formation, so I won't go into that. Issue about Giroud starting, Pete. Any thoughts on that? I mean, that was perhaps the one thing we might have. I'm guessing not disagreed with the manager, but I've had an alternative view perhaps. That was perhaps the one area there might have been some disagreement. Any thoughts on him starting rather than Alexis up front and a different formation?
Well, I said on the last time we spoke that I would rather Alexis was in the middle, but I'm not sure who you would play on the other side. Should you bring him in other than Welbeck, who I think probably isn't fit enough to play a whole game at the moment, so I'm not sure you can actually do that looking back on it. I thought actually Giroud was okay. I didn't think a lot of people seem to say, I mean, I don't think he had his greatest game ever, obviously he didn't, but I thought he was all right. And I think it's been a little bit unfair to say Welbeck coming on for him completely changed the game. I think we were already getting much better in the second half than we had been in the first, and Giroud was involved in a lot of that. And Welbeck only came on, I think, in the 83rd minute, didn't he?
Yes, around that, yeah.
So, yeah. It wasn't as if Giroud had been completely ineffectual. I don't think that's right. Interesting to note, though, about when Welbeck did come on, and I think it was about 83 minutes.
It was, yeah.
He did go into the centre. Now, but in extra time, Sanchez was in the centre. Now, someone I went with says that they saw, before the end of the 90 minutes, Arsene Wenger saying to them both, swap sides or swap positions. I don't know if that's right, but he was sure that he'd seen Wenger saying this to them both. So, and they certainly were playing that way round in extra time. So, I think we got what we wanted in the end anyway.
That's interesting, because BT, I was getting more and more strung out by that point of the game, so I can't remember exactly what they said, but I think the commentary suggested that Sanchez was perhaps a little surprised not to have gone up front at the 83rd minute when the substitution was made. So it's not really a great surprise, perhaps, that they obviously had a little chat and moved things around, if that's what happened, for the extra time. Matt, any thoughts, brief or otherwise, on Giroud playing? For what it's worth, I thought he did okay. He didn't really get any service for much of the time he was on, particularly the first half. I'm not sure he would have touched it much at all.
No, he seems to be getting into a lot of struggles and battles with company from long balls, which have ended up with both of them on the floor a lot. But I mean, yeah, he was all right. I think Welbeck probably benefited from having his pace up against a visibly tiring City defence, and he may not have been as effective if he had started. But sort of they've been up against Giroud, they've been up against all of them, and so Welbeck's impact was probably maximised when he came on. But I think in the long term, the formation suits definitely Sanchez, and if not Sanchez, then Welbeck over Giroud.
Welbeck was funny, wasn't he? Because he obviously caused some problems, but didn't perhaps cause as many problems as we might have liked in the final, I don't want to say the final third, the final sort of 10 yards. He seemed to have a few bad decisions. Although, the one he got really criticised for, the one where he could have pulled it across for whoever it was, Sanchez and Ramsey, I think, in the box, and he went for the rather audacious attempt in the corner. And they were like, oh, Sanchez and Ramsey criticising him. Well, my view at that point was if they'd done their jobs a bit better during the game, then they wouldn't have been relying on him. Because I thought they were two of the players, despite the fact Sanchez scored, who were perhaps didn't stand out as much as the others. Maybe I'm being a little unfair. Maybe I didn't spot stuff that Ramsey was doing in midfield, but Ramsey didn't.
Being unfair.
Am I?
Yeah.
Go on. tell me. What you thought they were doing all right then?
Yeah, I thought he was doing okay. I mean, I think, and the other good thing I thought about Ramsey's performance, particularly, I wouldn't say he was man of the match or anything near it, but I thought it was great that he didn't let his head drop after he made the mistake, or the first of three mistakes that led to the City opener. He kept playing his game. He was getting into the box. He was doing everything you might expect of him, to be honest, I thought. And again, learning to play in a new formation, I think it is bringing out a better side of it. He was certainly working hard, and I would have no complaints on that basis.
Okay, I didn't mean to sound too harsh. I was thinking, if they hadn't impressed me, they hadn't stood out. But that doesn't mean we weren't doing a decent job behind the scenes, I suppose, or in the engine room, whatever cliche you want to use. Well, you mentioned the goal, so let's move on to the City goal, because throughout the first half, City were pretty much on top. I thought towards the end of the first half, Arsenal were getting a little bit back into it, and we'll come back to perhaps some of the refereeing decisions. We can collect them all as one exciting little group, but. It was disappointing then, after a quarter of an hour or so of the second half, to see City score. Now, I'm going to ask Matt about this. Should Cech have done better with the goal?
I think he probably, yes. Yes, in short. We probably could have dealt with it better before it even gets to that point, but Aguero takes a pretty heavy touch, and I think, firstly, Cech's starting position is quite deep, considering it's from our corner. And then even with that touch, it looks like as he runs out, he can get it, but he sort of hesitates for a split second. Probably not wanting to risk committing, maybe, and risk a penalty and red card. But I think that sort of made Aguero's decision up to dink it over him. So I think probably he should have come and tried to wipe out the ball, but I mean, it's easy to say with hindsight, and he obviously had a split second to decide what to do.
Yeah, as I was watching it, I did think just for a second he was a little bit slow. But it's so easy to be hypercritical when you're not actually there doing it. I was a little disappointed he wasn't a little bit quicker. But what was great, from an Arsenal point of view, was within 10 minutes we got level, because I thought almost from that moment City seemed to go off the boil a bit. I don't know what the problem was. They'd been playing. Well, I thought they'd been playing very well. They obviously had a huge amount of possession. It was sort of 65%, I think, by the end of the game that they had, and I'm guessing it was even more than that in the first half. But we just kept going and kept coming on, and maybe that organisation was starting to bear fruit a little bit, give a bit more confidence to the forwards. But it was the defenders who got us back on track. A lovely ball from Oxlade-Chamberlain, but that finish from Monreal, I don't think it's got anywhere near enough credit as it should have got. I thought it was fantastic. Pete, how did it look from where you were?
Oh, right-footed, near post. It was just beautiful, wasn't it? It was. No wonder he lost it completely at that point. That was just fantastic, and just the crowd loved it as well, obviously, and it was a big turning point. And I think I think both Ramsey and Monreal made up for their mistakes in the earlier goal at that point, because Ramsey had closed down Bravo, hadn't he? And Bravo had sliced it out to get the free kick to get the throw in that led to it.
I was glad that our players did start closing Bravo down, because he looks like an accident waiting to happen anyway. So yeah, it was good they took advantage.
Yeah, so it's nice to see them all make up for the earlier mistake, and just a great response within 10 minutes, and I think we only got better from there on in.
I think we did. It looked like it was all going one way from there. Matt, any thoughts on Nacho's finish?
Yeah, it was incredible. He covered so much distance from where he started his run to then get on the end of the ball, pretty much arriving just as the ball dropped at his feet, so timed the run perfectly. And made it look very easy to volley it home with his weaker foot, which it certainly wasn't. It
looks unfair. Well, it's always unfair, isn't it? Because they really slow it down these days and show it on the super slow-mo stuff, and that makes it look okay, but it looks fairly straightforward. But yeah, watching it in real time, it looks like a cannon off his foot, and it doesn't look like he could possibly have caught it any better. And I think slowing it down sometimes lulls us into some kind of false view of how making it look much easier than it actually is to catch that ball so smoothly. So it's majestic, thoroughly enjoyable to watch that. Before we go into extra time, let's go back then, and I don't necessarily want to spend a lot of time on this, but the refereeing decisions. Now, there were a number we could discuss. So there was a shout in the first half for Aguero, I think, going down. As far as I could tell, he tripped over his own feet and went down. So I think that was rightly not given. The ball going out of play for the goal that Sterling then put in, well, yes, I mean, it didn't go out, so it should have stood. So we got away with that one. But then there was later on a penalty shout for Sanchez. It would have gone the right way for us, which I thought looked like a pretty good penalty, and I've forgotten who it was who fouled him. Was it Navas? Or was it
Navas?
Yeah. Pete, any thoughts on any of these sort of? I mean, I didn't think it was a particularly terrible refereeing performance. I think those calls could have gone either way. I think there was obviously a bit of an error with the ball going out of play, but the margin was so tight. I mean,
yeah, I think you called it right pretty much. Their penalty shout probably wasn't much of a shout really. But you might not have been able to moan too much if it had been given. The Sanchez shout was a penalty and should have been given, and the ball going out of play didn't quite go out of play. But it's so marginal; it's millimetres. It's odd that they gave it, really. I think, but other than that, I don't think there's a lot to moan about on either side.
And I suppose before I come to Matt with this, actually, we should mention while we're doing this kind of near miss kind of stuff, the save from Toure from Czech, the fingertips, almost, in the literal definition of fingertip save. Then the header cannoning off the bar from, was it Fernandinho? So City, even though they were by that point by no means the best team, I think we were the best team as the game sort of got nearer into the end. They had their chances, didn't they, Matt?
They certainly did. Czech's save was, a crucial one, really. Quickly on those decisions, I don't know what the BT co-commentators watch sometimes.
Oh, don't start me on them. Anyway, sorry, carry on.
I mean, having the wrong opinion it happens to start with, but to then just ignore all evidence put in front of you and just persist with a quite obviously wrong opinion, they seem to do it far too often.
Yeah, I Hoddle, the man who as a manager won nothing, talking about the decisions being made by Guardiola and Wenger, for example, just is laughable. Yeah, Pete, you had an advantage. You were at the game, so you couldn't hear this commentary. So
yeah, I'm very pleased to have missed all that.
Hoddle and McManaman, who I don't mind McManaman hugely, I have to say. I think at least he sounds enthusiastic. But yesterday they as Matt's alluding to, I think they just wouldn't see the other side of things. Anyway.
Yeah. Czech save though,
yes,
marvellous, and his point of redemption for the earlier mistake. If you ask me, I think that was just an amazing save to tip that onto the post, particularly from Toure, who was by far Man City's best player. I had a guy behind me who spent the whole game shouting at Arsenal players to get on him because he was old and couldn't do it anymore. And it seemed to me that he looks pretty much young enough. He was kept driving them forward and kept driving them forward, and every time you got the ball, you were holding your head in your hands, going no. But he is still a great player.
So, very much agree with that one. Into extra time we go then, and there's been some talk, and it's not really for us to worry about because it involves the opposition. But you need, you're 1-1 in the cup semi-final. It's injury time. Sorry, it's extra time, and you take off Aguero and put Fabian Delph on. I mean, it doesn't sound like a great deal of depth in the Man City team, and I saw that and I thought, what am I missing here? But within a couple of minutes of that, Alexis managed to bang one over the line after a bit of confusion. That was enjoyable to see that one go in, Matt.
Certainly was. Welbeck with a genius dummy to deliver swivel and leave the ball. Sanchez was the sharpest to finish it home, and I think once we scored and we took the lead, then the decision to take Aguero for Delph became an even more bizarre one, because I don't know if it's a ploy to sort of look more solid defensively and play for penalties. Well, they've gotten rid of probably their best penalty taker. And if they're trying to win it in extra time, they've also got rid of their striker. So I'm not sure what the logic was for taking Aguero off.
No, it seemed very odd. Pete, was there any... I mean, I know when you're actually there and you're getting wound up, you perhaps don't think through these things, but there must have been some relief when Aguero goes off, surely?
Oh, yeah, absolutely loved it. Yeah, I was really grateful for that, and also for Silva going off earlier.
Of course, yeah.
It was. I thought one thing about the managers in this case, I thought Wenger handled the substitutions much better than Guardiola. I mean, they were, as far as I could see, all mistakes. I mean, I know he was forced into taking Silva off, but he wouldn't have wanted to. The Sergio Aguero substitution was just very peculiar, as Matt says. Why would you take off your striker when you've got a potential penalty shootout or needing to win it in extra time? It was very, very strange indeed. And I was really pleased that Wenger didn't throw on a load of subs before 90 minutes, and he only made one before 90 minutes, didn't he? And
he did.
I think he only made two in the whole 120, didn't he?
Oh, he brought Coquelin on at the very end for the last couple of minutes, but yeah, Welbeck on 82 and Bellerin on 105. So what's that, half time in the in extra time?
Whereas he managed to make history by being the first team to make 4 substitutions.
Making 4, which included taking Sterling off, didn't it? After he'd earlier come on, which can't be any good for. I mean, I know there's reasons for it, but it can't be good for anyone's confidence. But not our problem, fortunately. So, although. We're probably done with the game itself now, and I know we all enjoyed it, and that's the main thing. But just thinking about the league thing here, I'm hoping this gives Arsenal some impetus, and perhaps slightly damages City's confidence going into the Manchester Derby and other games they've got coming up as in this race to the top 4. Matt, do you think this game will have any impact on the top 4 race?
I don't think it will affect City at all. I think they've got some after the Manchester Derby. They've got 4 very, very good games. But I think from Arsenal's perspective, a team which is so reliant on confidence, really, whether that be good or bad, I think to build some momentum is crucial. I think all of the team seems to have to really got behind the new formation, and most of them seem to be thriving. And I think at a crucial time of the season where we pretty much hit rock bottom, this was a match to win it. I think will give them so much confidence. And whereas before I didn't think we had any chance of winning the top 4, of getting in the top 4, I still think it's unlikely. But especially with Liverpool losing, I think now that there is a chance, however slim it may be.
Yeah, I tend to agree exactly with that about momentum and confidence. It's interesting that, and we're not going to talk about manager stuff. We'll save that for a pod in the future. But it's interesting that this does seem to have freshened things up. It looked a little awkward against Borough just a week ago, but it worked yesterday. I think there was still a bit of bedding in done, particularly in that first half, but actually it seemed to be steady and sturdy and keep City out. So yeah, but the bigger picture, I agree completely. I think it's the confidence, momentum. Pete, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm slightly worried that from our point of view, now having this cup final to look forward to, might possibly stop them being quite so focused on the top four race, and they might think, oh well, at least we've got that, whatever. But I'm hopeful that it will have the effect Matt's saying, which is give them a bit of confidence, trying to bed down into this new system. It is only 2 games in this new system, so I'm still not entirely convinced. And as we've said, this wasn't, we did get the rub of the green quite a bit in this game, and it was Man City. They're not the greatest, and they're certainly defensively suspect, and so I'm a little worried that it might take our eyes off the ball to now have this to look forward to, but hopefully it'll be the opposite, as you say, that we're getting confidence from it. We'll, if we continue with this system, that maybe we'll be able to knock on and crack on and start winning some more games and put a bit of pressure on at the top. But I think also, as you say, I don't see Man City losing any other points other than this week against United.
Okay, well, at least we now know when our last pod of the season will be. It will be the 28th or 29th of May or something after the cup final. We can put that in the diary at least, because we've got that nailed down now. So before we move on, because we've been going on about that quite a while, and why not, quite frankly. But Matt, any other points at all about the game or anything before or after it?
I think it was good to see Xhaka. I thought was probably, he controlled the game pretty nicely, but he seemed so pumped up at the end of the 90 minutes to the fans, trying to get them up, and obviously Wenger showed that huge show of emotion afterwards, relief more than anything. It's just good to see, after the abuse so many of the players got at Crystal Palace, it does seem like the players have responded well and made sort of a conscious effort to try and get the fans back on side. And while they try and do that a lot by interviews, I think it's performances like this where we see visible commitment and real desire to get back in the game and then to win it. That will go a long way to getting the fans back on side.
That's a good point to end that bit, actually, because yeah, exactly that. I can't say it any better, but they mentioned it again afterwards in the interviews. Oxlade-Chamberlain, I think, that kind of thing, and Ramsey, I think, also talked about letting the manager down and all the rest of it. But yeah, absolutely, doing it on the pitch like that, we'll take that every day of the week. Brilliant. Okay.
By the way,
sorry.
Fans were brilliant. By the way.
Oh, good. Yes, fans were brilliant. Says Fan. Excellent.
Well, no, I don't often say that.
No, that's fine. Well, yeah,
I say how poisonous and horrid we are.
Well, there is a difference, isn't there? Those Wembley games, I've been to a few over the last few years, there's a different atmosphere, definitely, and there is much more, for want of a better word, support. That there isn't that same tendency to drift into the pessimism, I don't think.
Yeah, exactly. And they were really good, and I think they were part of the win, to give them their due.
Excellent. Well, let's hope then. Oh, this is a hell of a link, this one. Let's hope they do the same on Wednesday. Look at that. Professional. Because let's move on then to looking at what we've got coming up this week. We are at home to Leicester on Wednesday. Back to the league action. And if we are going to maintain that slight but possible sort of chance for top 4 place, and obviously we need to be winning home games at the very least. So, Matt, are we going to see a back 3 again? Are we going to see any change in personnel? I mean, it's difficult against Leicester. You don't really know what to expect, given how terrible they've been for some of the season, but then how much better they've been over the last couple of months. Any predictions for this one?
Yeah, it is tough to predict, because Leicester's form changes on a weekly basis, and so does ours. So I think we will stick with a back 3, considering how well it's gone. I don't know what the status is on Mustafi's injury, but I think even if he is fit, there's definitely an argument to say Gabriel and Holding deserve to keep their places for now. I guess the interesting one would be Bellerin. Oxlade-Chamberlain's obviously played really well in both games, but you'd imagine Bellerin will probably get back into the team sooner rather than later, even despite the hair.
I was going to say, unless there's some kind of hair policy, which I'm all in favour of bringing in, quite frankly.
Absolutely. And then I guess the midfield sort of picks itself. I can't see Elneny or Coquelin coming in, so then the only real decision is whether we stick with Giroud up front. But I think we would have got good confidence from this, and I'm going to boldly predict another Arsenal win.
Another Arsenal win. I think I will as well. I have no idea really about what I think the shape will be the same. I don't know about the personnel. I'm assuming it'll be broadly the same, unless there's felt the need to give anyone a little rest before the big game on Sunday. I think an Arsenal win. Not a comfortable one, because I can't remember the last time we had a comfortable win. Pete, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, I think it's quite important to stick with the same formation now. I'm a bit worried he might choose not to, because it's a home game, and we've played this new formation in firstly an away game and then secondly a big semi-final, and maybe he might be thinking, back home we'll go back to what we know best. Mm. But I think if we keep the same formation, we've got a very good chance of rolling Leicester over and growing into this a bit more.
Excellent. All right, well, we'll leave that one there, because we'll see what happens there. But we have that game we might want to talk a little bit more about on the Sunday. Now, we're away at Spurs on Sunday, 4:30 kickoff. Now, it would be churlish to mention that in the same weekend that Arsenal were winning a semi-final, Spurs were celebrating, I think I've got this right, a new record of losing 7 semi-finals in a row. Oh, wow. Now, churlish to mention it, so I'm just saying now, feel free not to mention it when we're discussing this match. You don't feel you have to mention their pathetic performance in semi-finals over the last so many years. That is right. Let's get to it then. Spurs away. We know what the situation is. We know they're second in the league and still in with a shout at the title. We know where we are in the league, although hopefully we'll be a little closer after we've played Leicester. We know how good Spurs have been, dare we say it, throughout a lot of this season. There's a confidence issue here, though, potentially, in terms of how they will come back from the semi-final defeat they had against Chelsea, when they did, let's be honest, play not that badly, but still got beaten. Pete, any predictions on this one?
I've got it down for a draw.
Oh, all right. Any other thoughts on this one, then, to widen out your answer?
Again, I'm just hoping that their confidence has been knocked a bit by the Chelsea game, even when they're playing well, which they did play well, and they've been playing well all season. It's really revolting to see, and it's quite a frightening prospect going to their place for the first time in quite a long time, and that's why I'm hoping that we do stick with this same system and keep it tight there. And if so, I think we can get out of there with a draw at the least, and possibly even nick it.
Of course, they'll be playing all their games at Wembley next season, won't they? So, again, they won't want to be reminded about their poor record there over the last few years. So it'll be interesting to see how we do then. Anyway, we've got to worry about this Sunday first. Matt, any thoughts on this one?
I'd say I'm feeling slightly better about it than I was before this weekend. I think their confidence probably will have taken a hit, and with them going to all-conquering Crystal Palace midweek.
Oh, that's it. I couldn't remember who it was. Yeah. Yes, of course, Palace.
Could certainly take another hit, and if they don't win that and we win at Leicester, then I think the point gap between us is still quite a bit. But considering they do seem to have it in them annually to fall away quite dramatically at this part of the season, I think they probably will start questioning themselves. And I think that there's definitely a chance for us. I'm not going to boldly predict a win for us, but I think that we have definitely got a better chance than we did probably thought we would have a few days ago. And I probably agree with Pete's prediction of a draw.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because they will have a chance with that Palace game away to get rid of the semi-final defeat a little bit from their mind. But also, of course, tomorrow night because they play on Wednesday, as do we, but tomorrow night Chelsea are at home to Southampton. Now, if they win that, which you'd sort of assume they would, the pressure on Spurs against Palace will be quite a lot. So if they do lose that, or perhaps don't get the 3 points, you might think, surely they'd start to think by then that the league was beyond them, because they'd be looking for a couple of Chelsea slip-ups, which probably isn't going to happen. It's interesting that there could be quite a lot of stuff happening this week that we don't know now, obviously, that might have some effect on the game on Sunday, but on the other hand, it's the North London derby. You can forget everything else. That's the cliched approach to it. So, what am I going to predict? I could say a draw as well. I know I'm going to say an Arsenal win. Why not? I'm feeling confident. I'm sort of hoping they might well have been a bit knocked by events from yesterday through to next Sunday. So that's my hope, that they'll have had a bad week and we can finish it off and make it even worse for them. So there we go. Any other thoughts on the Spurs game before we finish? Pete?
No.
Fair enough. Matt, anything else?
No, I'd suggest I'm still not hugely looking forward to it. But who knows?
No, I think yes. I think looking forward to a North London derby, it just doesn't happen, even in the days when there was a bigger gap the other way with us very much in the ascendancy. They weren't ones you necessarily look forward to. So yes, all right then. Well, on that note, we'll leave it. Generally a very positive, upbeat pod, and quite rightly, after that result yesterday. I hope we have a lot more of these before the end of May, but that will depend on how the team do. But positive at the moment, and it's not, after a couple of wins in a row, it's nice to get that momentum going, and hopefully we can keep it going this week. Anyway, then, for the moment, then we will say thank you very much, Pete.
Thank you, Matt. Have a lovely week.
Oh, thank you. I will hope to, and thank you very much, Matt.
Thank you very much.
And thank you very much for listening, everyone, and we will be back with you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.